is shiny. I've got a shiny forehead today. I don't know why. I'm not sure. I need to get
right.
I'm in the room. I think I've done the podcast now in every room in my house. This was the guest room of our house. Now is my wife's office / our exercise room, so you can see like treadmill behind me. And but anyway, it's good to see everybody. Good to be back. Scary week last week around here health-wise, but things look to be better and improving. So thank you very much for picking up the slack, and happy that hockey comes back as well. So we got lots to talk about. But first, Russ, what's up?
All right, so let's talk about the obvious. So the New York Jets won yesterday, and they have a win, and so do the Jaguars. And the Jaguars have a stronger schedule based on what they rank at the beginning of the year. So basically, the Jaguars are in position for the top play now, and Trevor Lawrence, the quarterback out of Clemson. So let's get into this. For people that thought that the Jets were tanking, the players were not tanking. The reason they were tanking was because they have a lousy coach in Adam Gase. Now, Sam Darnold has finally been able to sort of overcome that, and they beat a really good Rams team by playing really well. They've been playing better for the last 2 or 3 weeks, and just circumstances have been making sure that drives got killed. Last week they missed 3 field goals. If those things didn't happen, they probably could have won another game in the last 2 or 3 weeks, but they didn't. But they won this one. And I get why the players were tired of hearing about it, because a player doesn't want to lose. They don't go out there to lose. They don't go out there to say, yay, I'm 0-16. And they really came out yesterday before the game and after the game, talking about it. So it is what you would expect from players. We cover players, we know. Yeah. And at the end of the day, the one thing that I really hate about how Jet fans get treated is if they lose the game, then everybody says, well, the Jets, they stink. They're worse than a high school team. And yeah, they're tanking for Trevor Lawrence. And then if they win, then you hear, well, they can't even lose right. And, even like the weathermen were probably making jokes today. And that's what really annoys people when you're a Jets fan, is that's what happens.
Yeah.
And if your goal, okay, in some leagues there are rules against this, but if your goal is to tank and get the first pick, then don't put your good players out there. Then do what the Leafs did in 2016. Make your team as bad as you can without like basically, the team tried, but they put out a bad team. So if you're putting out a 45-year-old Frank Gore out there to be your running back. You could put out a worse quarterback than Sam Darnold, because Sam Darnold is actually a pretty good quarterback.
Yeah, and actually, he's probably going to get another year now to prove himself, which I think is fine because, Trevor Lawrence would be great, but I wasn't all for dumping Sam Darnold just to dump him. I dump him for a guy that clearly is a generational guy, but now if they're stuck with Sam Darnold, well, guess what? Now they could build up some other key parts of the team, like the offensive line and whatever, and make themselves better.
Yeah, the NFL is the only league where the draft, and I'm not saying the draft in Major League Baseball doesn't matter, but it does. It does. But we know that even the number 1 pick in Major League Baseball isn't guaranteed to make the major leagues in a year or two. It takes a while and development, things of that nature. Yep. But in the NBA and the NHL, they have a lottery to prevent tanking, and teams still tank. And in the NFL, though, if you tank and you finish first, you're going to get the first pick.
Yeah.
So
sorry, someone was coming in the office here.
All right. Yeah, so it's one of those things. And so anyhow, that's it. I saw Michael Cohen in the chat room saying I'm trying to paint a rosy picture. I'm not. I'm just telling you exactly like it is. Yesterday when I tweeted, someone said, well, how do you feel? And my tweet was, I'm happy and sad. And that's how I feel today.
Right.
I really feel football, or just put this out there, I watched some football yesterday. I love watching football. I'm not, I'm like your casual. I really only have the brain capacity for hockey. Right now for whatever it's worth, in my world. But I'm watching, because there's a lot going on. So that's you guys, I'm really glad you guys keep up on the other stuff better. But watching football yesterday, just like I definitely feel the lack of fans in football. Like I do. I don't know. I really feel it more than I thought I would, because it's not something like you see the fans all that often in football. And I just feel it. I feel it.
Except the Cowboys game, because they did have fans there and you could hear them.
Yeah, that's interesting. We're going to get to talk about that because that's part of my topic I want to discuss, because we're going to get into that. I wrote about that. But let's get going here.
All right.
It is the 21st of December. Hello, Hockey World. It is Monday, December 21st, 2020.
I'm Michael Lagello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I am Eklund, and you're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in the comings and goings in the hockey world. And today, we are happy to be finally knowing that we only knew we were coming back, but we finally know we're coming back.
Right.
We're coming back for what's going to be a crazy fun 8 months, I think. And then, a short break before we actually get back to normalcy.
Right.
I'm told the next season, although I already was told the next season probably won't be able to start till the middle of October. But that's okay. We'll take the middle of October because basically they're saying, they're going to go on the schedule that they went off of after the World Cup of Hockey. Remember where we started a little bit later?
Well, I don't know about that, Act, because yes, in a perfect world, but remember, next season is the Olympic year. So if they go to the Olympics, they're going to have to start early.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So at the end of the day, we'll take that, right? Because where we are is finally, and I have to say, the one thing that shocks me, my sources were pretty darn good throughout this whole thing. And, it was great down to the divisions being right on, except, obviously Minnesota and Dallas made their own switch.
Yep.
And then also the concept that there wasn't going to be conferences, which came out yesterday too, is another concept that we had a while back, that they were just going to take the top, team and we'll play the fourth best team and as far as the divisional winners. So
we're going to call it the Stanley Cup semifinals and final,
which I love anyway. I think it's so much better as it is because it gives you the best chance for the best Stanley Cup final. It gives you a really good shot at having the best two teams playing, which we never see in the NHL. You never really see the top two teams playing at the end of the year. It's still not definite.
But that's just by basically by ranking. I do think we see the best, no matter how it shakes out, because I think having to get through that.
We do. You're right. We see the winner of a tournament. That's what the Stanley Cup playoffs are, is a tournament. We see it. We see whoever's playing best in that tournament. We do see. Yeah,
but you got to go through a lot just to get into that.
It's a hell of a hard tournament, but it is a tournament.
But the one thing that we can see this time around that we haven't seen, I believe, since 78, 79.
Yeah.
Is for example, remember 78 was 79 was
later than that. I think it was later than that.
No, but let me finish. 79 was Montreal, New York in the Stanley Cup final. 78 was Montreal, Boston, I believe.
Right.
Then ever since then, it's been an East and a West team. It's been New York, Vancouver, New York, Edmonton.
And it was Montreal and the Rangers, not the other New York teams.
And I generally don't mind East and West teams, although I will say that I do think that sometimes the Stanley Cup Final suffers from a little bit of a lack of familiarity between the teams playing and playing. I do think that I felt that a couple times, but by the time it's all said and done, it doesn't much matter.
Well, I'll tell you, all right. So if you want to go off of that, in 2004, I felt that until the fight. And then I felt like when we had the fight in the Stanley Cup between Calgary and Tampa, that ended all of that.
Well, LeCavier and
that was great.
And again, I think at that moment, I felt like, okay, now they know each other enough to hate each other, and that really made a difference to me in the way everything shook out.
I felt like the most exciting Stanley Cup Finals, and I've thought about this a lot, like that we've seen, and we've seen a lot of good ones. Yeah. Since I've been covering it live, the ones that really stood out as being incredibly exciting were the Pittsburgh Detroit ones, which were those teams they're obviously different conferences at the time,
right?
But they're only a couple hundred miles apart from each other.
Yeah,
right. But for example, Detroit was artificially in the West.
Right, they were artificially in the West.
And that was always something that, that organization hated. And then they eventually got back to the East. To me, and I know to most people in Canada, the most exciting Stanley Cup final would have been 93 had the Leafs won Game 7 against the Kings, because it would have been Toronto-Montreal, because Toronto was in the West for some stupid reason.
Right.
And they would have played Montreal. And that's that original 6 rivalry.
That I would have loved to have seen too.
But you could have Boston, Montreal, or Toronto, Boston.
Yeah, imagine Toronto, Boston.
Boston, Vancouver was a hell of a cup. There's been some
there've been great cups, but I think that at the end of the day, what we're hearing is, I love the way they're doing this. I do want to talk about some other things first, though.
I know people are enamored with the fact that you could have, like I saw an Islander fan saying, you could have the Islanders and the Leafs. And my answer was, my first thought in my head was going to be, in an alternate universe, they will play in the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, right. Yeah, both of them have to get there.
They still have to get there.
Yeah, I mean, there could be some great ones. I mean, who knows? I mean, you could have St. Louis, Chicago in a Stanley Cup final.
Yeah,
right? To me, that would be phenomenal. There's some really good possibilities here. But I mean, you could have
that does make it exciting. I agree with you.
But I like the concept of that. I've always liked the concept of that. I liked one play 16 in the playoffs. It was impossible to keep doing it because of the way travel is and all that. But it did give you the best. Like, it did make the regular season mean a hell of a lot more when you could finish play the 16th seed. That meant something. But the two things that really struck me about this, and the first one is more of like the fun bookkeeping world of our, like, and Michael enjoy this because he helps with Cap Central. But the concept of this of the taxi squad and how this is going to work is, I think, really interesting. First of all, so it's 6 players. One has to be a goalie, but you can have more than one goalie. But one has to be a goalie.
Well, because I'm going to write about this, Zach.
Yeah.
For my column today, looking at the ins and outs of the taxi squad, especially with a team like Toronto, who's up against the cap.
Yeah.
The players, if they are waiver exempt, don't have to clear waivers in the taxi squad. But players who have to clear waivers, they have to clear to get to the taxi squad. And for example, the situation with Washington right now with Henrik Lundqvist, now he's not playing. They have only one goaltender. They have backups who are okay, but they might be looking for somebody in free agency or to pick up somebody off of waivers. And the Leafs like Aaron Dell as their third string goaltender. And a lot of teams think they're going to need 3 goalies this year. And what Toronto might do possibly is keep Aaron Dell on their 23-man roster so he doesn't have to clear waivers.
Right.
So if they do that, then they don't have to have a goaltender on the taxi squad.
You actually do, according to what I heard, Mike. You might want to check into that. But
I did. It says
reading into it. Then I heard Dave Pagnotta say the same thing today. Actually.
Well, no, I mean, Cap Friendly posted the stipulations of the taxi squad, and it says you have to have 3 goaltenders on your roster, including one on your taxi squad, unless you have 3 on your
roster. All right. Okay, that's interesting because I read that differently, but we'll have to check. We'll do some research. I'm definitely do research beyond Cap Friendly on that one because I think there's something else to that. But because I talked to another GM today who was worried about that. If that is the way it is, put it this way, at least even an actual NHL GM is not positive that that's the way it is because it was confused. I mean, obviously this is all brand new and confusing.
After this segment, I do have some breaking news on a player.
Okay, yeah. Let's. But the thing about this that is really interesting is we've seen it in Philadelphia. We've seen for years. We saw this. It used to be when the Flyers and Phantoms both practiced in the skate zone in Voorhees, New Jersey, which is a double rink place. The Flyers and Phantoms could both practice there. The Flyers could send a player to Phantoms practice for a couple days. And that player screws the player. I mean, that player gets AHL money for the time, but it helps the team because the team can and that's you're going to see that I think a ton.
If there's an AHL,
no, sending it to the taxi squad works the same way.
Okay, the taxi squad, okay.
So because the taxi squad is the AHL salary, so they can still practice with the team. It's just a matter of bookkeeping of saying that guy's in the taxi squad today for this.
Yeah, it's going to happen. There's no.
And that could save them.
Well, that's what's going to happen with Toronto.
A ton.
Let's just say this.
Here's the thing about that, Mike. That you should write about this in your article. That will happen, but
every day it will happen.
Every day it'll happen.
Yeah,
but it's not the greatest thing for team morale. Like I saw it around. I talked to some players, who were in that Flyers Phantoms thing, who were getting sent back and forth. And they wouldn't go on the record with it, of course, because no one wants to like piss anybody off. But off the record, that's a really bad environment.
But the difference here is you're not, even though, like for example, with the Marlies and the Leafs, even though they're in the same town, the difference between them ferrying players back and forth between the Marlies and the Leafs here with the taxi squad, it's a paper transaction, but they're not being sent anywhere.
Right, and they're practicing with the team still. It's the same. Right. They're doing the same exact work, the same exact thing. They're just getting paid less. That is going to this is a can of worms that they really and no one will ever say anything about it. And maybe some players will, but if I'm a player and I'm being told to do this, because they're not going to do it to just like a guy. I mean, they're going to try to save $5,000 here, whatever, that kind of thing. But they're going to try to save more money. They're going to try to do this to some players who are as high as paid, the highest paid, waiver-free guys that they have are going to get screwed.
Well, okay, even the guys at the clear waivers. Somebody was making the example of sending like Louis Erickson if you're Vancouver down.
Right.
For waivers, you bury $1 million because they don't want to play him in the first place. But Russ, I haven't heard any clarification on this one, but this is one that I'm going to be interested. We don't think the OHL is going to play. Mm-hmm. We don't think the WHL or the Q are going to. The Q is going to keep going. Resume after they played. No. Okay, you've got a guy like Nick Robertson who, if the OHL is playing, cannot play in the American Hockey League because he's 19 and can only play in the NHL or the OHL.
Right.
But if there's no OHL, does that mean he can't be on the taxi squad? I don't think it means he can't be on the taxi squad because there's no other league for him.
If there's no other league, they're going to let those guys on the taxi squad.
Well, I don't know. They're going to have a limit because you're still going to have a limit of people that could be in the practice facility. You can't just have a whole team.
Well, there's only 6 taxi squads.
Six is the most.
Right. So that's it. So, yeah, but once they reach that limit.
But what I'm saying is,
top guys, what Mike's saying is a really good point. Some of those top prospects.
Yeah, that's where they're going to be. Yeah.
They're going to be, but and that is going to be arguably good for them. I mean, I think
for them, it's bad for the career AHL guy that never gets to even play this year if there's no league.
Right. That's for sure. But for the prospects who being around the NHL team, all the time, practicing with the NHL team all the time, that's good for them. I think. Yep. I mean, versus playing in the OHL, there's obviously, this we can go. I'm sure, Rush, you've had this argument 1,000 times over with people, and there's benefits of playing in the OHL too, confidence and all that stuff, all the reasons we would hear, like you want Frenier or Jack Hughes to play in the tournament.
The large majority, it's better for them to do that. The taxi squad, you're still not replicating games. It sounded nice for baseball, but a lot of players who were on those reserve squads, they just were hitting batting practice and scrimmaging, and they were, they were not happy with it, and it wasn't great for them. The only bonus for them was they were getting paid better than they were getting paid in the minor leagues. Right. Now with the NHL players, it's pretty much going to be the same as what your contract is. So that's not a big benefit.
Well, here's the thing I don't understand. If a guy's on the taxi, and I think if he's on the taxi squad, you're burning a year of his contract no matter what.
No,
right?
No, I don't think so. No.
If it's Nick,
in the AHL, you would be.
No, it depends how many games they get in.
Right, but
for example, we'll use Robertson as the example again. He's on his ELC. He played 4 playoff games. That does not count towards the 10-game limit because it's regular season games. Okay, they've said it's not 10 this year; it's 7. So if he plays 6 regular season games, his ELC hasn't kicked in yet.
Right.
So, and now I think they're going to play him more. I think he's going to be going up and down, and he'll play, and then he won't play, and he'll play, and then he won't play. They'll manage it. But his ELC doesn't kick in until he plays 6 regular season games.
Right. All right. So which do you want? Do you want the player signing or notes about a star player who's unsigned?
Let's go with the player signing.
Player signing is Drake Caggiula for the Arizona Coyotes for 1 year. It's a good signing. I mean, he's a guy that plays your bottom 6. He can penalty kill. He's feisty. He gets you somewhere between 8 and 10 goals. He can get you 30, 35 points. Very good signing for them. That's, a team like Arizona is always looking for scoring. Last year he had 15 points in 40 games. So you figure 56 games, he can get you in a shortened season 20-something points. So that Chicago Arizona pipeline continues.
Sorry, I had the thing happen here.
That's okay. So I was just saying Drake Caggiula was signed by the Arizona Coyotes.
Okay,
1 year deal.
Very cool. So the concept here that I'm talking about, Mike, is if a guy is in the AHL, right? They said, by the way, the 10 games thing I heard is now 7 games. Is that right?
Okay.
Okay. So 7 games is if you're on the taxi squad, you're considered an AHL player.
Right. But you're not. See, the problem is.
But if you're an AHL player, you're burning your contract.
Not necessarily. No. If you're on your ELC, if you haven't played 10 NHL games, you haven't burned any.
So an AHL player I thought AHL players burned a year.
No, they could space it out, let this guy play once a month if they want to, and it'll be okay.
It only kicks. I believe it only kicks in terms of burning a year until like your third AHL year. You can play 2
Right.
AHL
Yeah, sorry. See, I didn't know that. All
yeah,
right.
it's that entry level slide situation.
Okay, so there you go. So that's good then. Okay, so that makes sense. There's a lot, obviously, but we're going to see a lot of crazy bookkeeping going on, basically, and we're going to see a lot of players.
Like we don't already.
No, I know, but more, way more.
Related revenue.
Way more, but way more because, like, we're going to see players. There will be a growing undercurrent of angst about this. Trust me.
Well, I will forewarn a guy named Otis Driftwood, who's a guy who's a Hockey Buzz viewer who constantly emails Eric to send me an email to adjust the Boston Bruins roster when it doesn't match it perfectly. With players going up and down every day,
we're not going to do that.
It's not going to be every day. I'm sorry.
We don't get the direct. We don't get the direct text from the league like some people do. So
yes,
we'll do our best. Okay, we'll do our best there to keep everything up to date. But yeah, a capologist will be very busy, and there's nothing more exciting, Funky, than a capologist's life. But we'll move on from there to the next thing, which is and this also, I found really fascinating that Dallas is going to start the season with 50% of their fans that that they're going to be able to have 50%.
Yeah.
5,000 fans. Not, I guess it's a third, right? So and apparently like 2,500 here in Florida.
Yeah.
Which is
100% capacity for them.
Just kidding, but beyond that,
and they'll be lucky if they can pull that many.
Let's just talk about that concept for a second, because to me, it's one thing when you have a capacity of outdoor football games. It's another thing when you're bringing a lot of people into indoor hockey games, because I don't care if there's 5,000 people in there. People are crossing paths with each other. You got bathrooms, you've got all kinds of stuff. You just have no way of getting around the fact that you are crossing paths with each other and the indoor air. And then now, if you're a player going into that arena, say you're like the Flyers going into Dallas or whatever, you got to play with 5,000 people from Texas in a state that's raging with COVID. How's that going to work? I mean, the Flyers aren't going to go in there, obviously, but
I'll tell you this. I will give away a secret of mine, and you may be able to do this. You may not be able to do this, but I've been to Atlantic City twice, where I was indoor for like 2-3 hours, and then a couple restaurants outdoors only, and I never used the facilities.
Yeah, you should never use facilities for sure. I agree with you 100% on that. But I also
if you could help it.
But just in general, if you're a player now, I mean, they're going through all of this stuff. You can't leave the hotel. You can't go to a bar. Right. I mean, how can the NHL have variable stuff like this going on?
Well, the NBA does.
I know, but how is that going to fly?
It's going to work, and it's not going to work. There was a guy in the NBA who said he had to go get wings and ended up at the strip bar because he liked the wings there. You can,
and that,
you know what I mean? Like that's
as much as this does, though. I mean, the idea of going in, like California is so strict. Like we talk about, the Sharks may have to play in Arizona, yet they're going to be in they're not in the, okay. So Dallas is in the Central Division. So let's just throw out there, we got to remember Dallas is in the Central, right? I mean, there are so many issues with this to me. That if a player going,
but the Cowboys have been playing with fans this entire season.
That's outside. That's outside.
No, it's not. No, it's not. They
got a hole in the middle.
That's it, but it's not completely outside.
It's a much bigger space. Okay, so you're talking about the large. I mean, the largest space in the NHL is probably Chicago, right? If you've been in any arena, the indoor where the Blackhawks play is gigantic. I mean, it is for a hockey arena, but even that's like not close to what you're talking about with Dallas.
Okay, no, that's fair. Look, I mean, it is going to be enter at your own risk. That's what it's going to be.
But players can't do that. Players have to play.
Right.
So you're coming in from another city and you got to play.
But there's no contact. There's no contact with the people. And I'm assuming if these buildings are open, that they have these high velocity of vents. And
they're assuming that, and you're probably right.
We're all assuming that. We don't know if that's actually
right. But at the same, and we also this how much we know that this spreads through the air. We know that.
Yeah.
So if you've got people sneezing that are, I mean, are you going to? In my opinion, the one thing if I'm a player, one thing I'm demanding if I go into these arenas, that no one is sitting in the first level. None. No one. Like, you know,
I agree. They shouldn't be down low.
it shouldn't be close to the players. Like, no one should be behind the benches for sure.
Right. You shouldn't have anybody behind the benches
at all, you know, and
you could put them. I think you could put them everywhere else, but just not behind the two benches, and probably not behind the goal either, to be fair.
Does that mean that the camera people can't be where the little opening is in the glass?
No,
camera people are going to be tested. You know, that's the thing about camera people. We'll know that they're safe. And I'm sure that, you know, and I'm assuming, let's hope that they're doing, like, you're going to do some kind of temperature check at least or something on people when they come in.
Yeah, they'll do a temperature check.
But man, oh man, it's like, I don't know. I mean, we can all say what we think about, you know, like Michael says, you have to be within 6 feet of someone for greater than 15 minutes. Sure, you know, and we all know this, but we don't really, we were learning so little things. We're learning that, you know, you have to be super, like, if you're not a super spreaders are like, what, like 2% of the people with COVID are spreading it to 75% of the people. It's like there's certain people that just spread it.
There was one wedding that affected 245,000 people.
Yeah, and that's incredible because all you need is a super spreader or two in that place,
and they don't have a good handle on that. We have to.
We don't know how. We don't have a way to test for super spreaders yet. I know people are working on that. That's like a huge thing because if you can test for something,
we don't even know when you get the vaccine if you can't still spread it.
Right, we don't even know that. Right, so and there is glass. I granted the plexiglass. Timothy puts in the chat room that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's a big sneeze guard. I get it.
It's a big sneeze guard, but But, you know, that's the official, you know, hits the sneeze guard. That would be Mike Emmerich's new thing if we're Mike Emmerich still doing this. But I think that this is such a freaking can of worms, and I want people in the arenas more than anybody else. But my gosh, that just to me.
But players know this, and they're going to be taking the risk. They know this. They signed up for it. They know. But okay, if you want to get into the head of a player. Here's what a player thinks.
Let's do that. That's a scary place to go.
No, but I'm going to do it.
I'm ready to go.
The player in Dallas will appreciate having the fans there. They'll like hearing the noise, and they'll think that they're not going to be able to get the virus. And because of the shape I'm just telling you, the way the player thinks, they're not going to worry about it. They're not going to think they can get it, and they're going to like having the fans there. That's the way they're going to play.
I mean, I agree with you. 90% of the players think there's a general invincibility among athletes anyway.
Right. And I know we're talking about a different sport, but for example, you know, the Bills won the AFC East on Saturday, and they're going to have a home playoff game for the first time in 25 years. Right now, New York State bans any fans, even in outdoor stadiums.
Can I say this can only happen to a team from Buffalo? When you think about it.
Yeah, that they're going to probably win a Super Bowl when nobody can
right.
And the thing was that when their plane came back from Denver, they had thousands of people waiting at the airport to greet them. Most of them wearing masks, but
still they were packed in.
They were packed in, and you know, there's some talk about it's outdoor. It's January. They should allow at least a portion, 15,000. It's a 75,000 seat building. They should allow 15,000 fans in there. You know, I'm all in favor of that. They're going at their own risk.
Yeah. And I'm also in favor of that. I mean, it's Buffalo, so it's going to be freezing. So people are going to not only have masks on, they're going to have scarves on. They're going to have people are really going to be blocked up. Like there's going to be a lot. I mean, it's still possible, granted, but that's a very different scene than Texas or Florida. Where it's hot outside and people are, aren't going to be wearing, you'll have this,
Yeah.
The other thing is, here's the other thing I think teams should
do. But there won't be tailgating, They're not going to allow tailgating.
No table slamming, nothing like that, nothing going on.
Yeah,
people will do that in their own backyards in Buffalo.
On Amazon recently, because we have to, my wife has to go into work a little bit more often now than she did before.
Right.
And I got really nervous about that because she's got asthma and it's not, a great thing. So, recently I went online and I managed to pick up, some N95. I picked up like 50 N95 masks for like, I think it was like $20 or something like that. It was way less than it had been, like way less than it had been for the best mask, because there's a huge difference in masks. So to me, like if I'm an NHL arena, like NHL should be handing out those kind of masks when people walk through the door, that kind of thing. Like something along the lines of good, because if you put better masks on people, that makes a big difference too than like,
Yeah, they're not going to do that though.
Probably not, but I think
that's a nice thought. I agree with you.
I mean, that's
not going to do it.
Yeah,
I'm going to tell you something else. We don't know if it will happen. Do we think the minute the players are in the locker room that they're going to keep their masks on?
No, because they're tested every day.
Those players are going to feel comfortable with
But
themselves.
it doesn't matter, Mike. You could be tested that day, and 6 hours later,
super
spread
spreader
it.
at the arena, you're screwed.
They're going to be sitting next to each other on the
If
bench.
one of the guys who's cleaning that place out is a super spreader,
Right.
But what I'm saying is, and they did this in the bubble, if they're testing them every day, and they're sitting next to each other on the bench, I don't care if they're drinking from different water bottles. They do that now to prevent spreading and stuff like that. But if they're on the bench with no masks on, they're going to be in the locker room where there's more space in between than on the bench.
True.
But it's not 6 feet of space.
It's not 6 feet, but it's
better than on
sitting elbow to elbow on the bench.
I mean,
we've seen we've seen in NCAA hockey that it is possible to wear a mask and play hockey, and we're not going to see it in the NHL. And they're going to have this assumption that yes, because somebody's tested, they're okay. But again, these tests are not 100%.
No, they're not 100%. But there is inherently some risk right now with what these teams and what these players are doing. But
yes,
they're doing it because it's their livelihood.
Yes,
it's how they make their money, and they're willing to waive the risk.
But again, now the difference is we can't.
Right.
I don't want you to do this either. It's hard not to, but we can't go back and say, but in the bubble, because they're not in a bubble.
Right. They're not in a bubble.
They're traveling now. Yeah. They're going to come in contact with more restaurant workers in weird cities. Right. They're going to come in contact with a lot more people than they did in Edmonton.
Okay, so this is right now where things stand. The only team in the U.S. apparently that can't play in their own building right now is San Jose. They're going to have their training camp in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Right.
And supposedly the plan B is for them to play games in Glendale until they're able to play in St. Clair County. Now, we heard over the weekend, and the thing that delayed the announcement for at least a couple days is what is going on in Canada. There are things we heard over the weekend that the problem province is British Columbia, and that Vancouver may have to be supplanted either by playing in another city like San Jose, or I think I don't think there's going to be a hub or bubble in Canada. There's talk about that, but and there was talk this morning about a shutdown of basically a complete shutdown in Ontario for 14 to 28 days, but there's
28 in the south and 14 in the north.
And 14 in the north, meaning Toronto going down the Niagara Peninsula to Fort Erie is going to be almost an entire month of a shutdown. But that doesn't mean it's an entire shutdown right now in New York State, and they still allow the Bills to play, and they're going to allow the Sabres to play. So I think
that's not stopping the teams from playing. I agree with you 100% there. I mean, you're gonna. I mean, at this point, we know enough that teams can still play and that they can figure that out. But I think that I wouldn't be surprised at all if there was some bubbles in Canada if they went there. Although it's hard to say. And
I mean, I'm still going to throw it out there. It still wouldn't shock me if they leave Canada too. It wouldn't shock me because there are going to be way more obstacles in Canada than there will be here in the U.S.
Yeah. See, that's the hypocrisy of all this, and I got into a little bit of an argument with a few people on Twitter, and it's like, okay,
that shocks me, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, completely shocking. British Columbia, you have international flights flying into the Vancouver airport all over the world, and these are people who are either untested or have maybe tested by rapid tests at the airports.
New strands of COVID in England now that no one's sure about yet.
Right, and they're on the honor system going to be quarantining for 7 to 14 days. But an NHL team that's coming from Alberta or Ontario, not coming from the U.S., is flying into a private charter location in the airport, is going to one hotel, is sequestering themselves in a practice facility or in the arena to play 2 or 3 games and then leaving, and somehow they're a greater risk than somebody flying from Hawaii or flying from Hong Kong. Give me a friggin' break. You're a bunch of clueless, asinine idiots.
Well, I mean, the other irony, of course, is that Canada has been better at this than we have in America.
Well, they were. I don't know if they are now.
Yeah, it's blowing up everywhere.
But I'm saying that they're going to be stricter, which is going to get them back to normalcy quicker. But it will be harder for the NHL in the meantime, right? So the irony is that we might end up playing the playoffs all in Canada again if everything that anything's possible.
And that's not what the players want. They don't want
the players want at all. But
it was the rate of infection doubled in Ontario last week. Doubled.
Right, so they did, according to our chat room, they stopped travel from the UK yesterday. So I give them credit for that. Listen, I mean, there are so many variables in this. Obviously, we're going to have issues. I just think that some of the obvious ones. Now, and it is possible. I've also heard, it's possible that we have a change in presidency here at the end of January. So with that could come, no fans in Dallas, no fans in Florida too.
That's possible.
That would be.
The problem is that because of our governmental system, the president can't do that. That was
right. He could say it, suggest it,
but that doesn't mean a good goddamn.
Right.
It doesn't.
Right. It doesn't. I do wonder how many people are, and like Kevin Allen has always said, are people going to be how willing are people going to be to go back into these things in the first place? Like if you're going to go back in, to a 5,000 seat arena. We still don't know how the media is going to work.
Listen,
right?
Everybody in Buffalo would be back in this year if you allowed them. Like there's certain places they're going to but they would, based on the fact on who they have on the team. They'll want to see Taylor Hall. They would come back.
There's always going to be people. You have to draw the the Venn diagram of the people willing to do it and the people who can afford to do it.
Right.
where that interacts, you're going to have people, right?
Yeah, and the first people they're going to let into the buildings are first responders and people over 75 because they're the only ones that got the vaccine.
Right, and I do think that day is coming too. Like
that covers the Coyotes at least.
Russ, you've said it before that I think you're right that there will be some way of tracking. Like once you have the vaccine, it'll be on your ID in some way, shape, or form that you've been vaccinated. So that'll enable you to do certain things that other people won't be able to do. I think that's possible too, which is another huge,
get onto the cyclone at Coney Island. Like, what is it going to enable me to do?
That's like the mark of the beast stuff. But yeah, we'll see how that all plays out. But that's like kind of ridiculous stuff. But let's move on. Let's move on to some other thoughts while we're here too. The World Juniors, obviously, also they canceled a couple things. They start tomorrow, I guess it is, with their
Christmas Day. Christmas Day, they start the actual game.
Right, some practice games tomorrow.
23rd. No, the 23rd for
23rd. So Wednesday.
Yeah.
Wednesday. All right, can I say one thing though that really bothers me about this tournament, just in general?
Sure.
You probably know what it is, and it really pisses me off to no end right off the bat. I'm sure everybody can guess it out there because this just baffles me to no end that the U.S. and Canada aren't playing each other.
They're in different. It matters. Again, you can't artificially create these pools. It matters how you finished the year before.
I know, but they need to artificially create these pools.
No, you can't do that.
You need to, because the reality is that this thing
they're in separate divisions in the round robin, but they could play each other when they cross over in the match.
Yeah, there's a crossover point.
Yeah.
They could, but there should be like a one-team automatic crossover, and it should always involve U.S. and Canada if they can at some point, because it's just.
Why? Because
I understand we're talking about. I know you're talking about
it's competitive balance, Ak. You can't.
I get that, but at the same time, or like they're not.
Otherwise, it'll be college football where they just basically say, Texas A&M is better than
game against each other. Give us at least one chance to see these teams play each other.
They will if they play, right?
No, but each team is playing a practice game, and they're not. Why isn't that game?
No. Okay, they're playing. They're in separate divisions in the round robin. Very easily, if the U.S. finishes,
I know they can play each other in the medal round.
You don't need them to play twice.
No, we never had a problem with them playing twice before.
In a perfect world, I get it. There was the New Year's Eve night. New Year's Eve
Canada US thing is phenomenal.
USA Canada always plays US Eve, New Year's Eve, and then not this year.
That's phenomenal. And I think that was something that really this tournament had going for it in beautiful.
I would just tell you, Ek, is TFB.
You guys.
You can't
leave a marketing bone in your body, do you? I mean,
let it happen organically.
Wait, actually, speaking of a marketing bone, I'm going to be doing a 2-hour live special on SiriusXM tomorrow night, 6 to 8 p.m. with Shane Malloy on Hockey Prospect Radio. There's
good. There you go. But I know that's marketing. I get it. I'll be listening, and then they'll be playing it every 2 hours.
Yes, and GMs will text me, and everybody will text me that
John
John
Shannon will be messaging.
John Shannon, you're
I'm sure if you're driving around on Christmas Eve night looking at the lights, you'll be able to listen to it. I'm sure if you drive around on Christmas Day, you'll be able to listen to it.
I feel like I need to tweet this to John Shannon personally.
Do it.
It's on. It's going to be on all the time. So it's great because I miss you guys. You're part of my Saturdays and Sundays. I jokingly say it, but it's like as a dad, I'm running errands on Saturday and Sunday mornings, and it was always there's Russ. There's Russ.
Yeah. We appreciate it.
I really miss it.
I need to hear Bobo O'Reilly a little more.
I really miss it a lot. I just think that I don't know. I get what you guys are saying. I understand the competitive balance. I understand exactly how it works. I know I get the whole concept of it. I just realize think it's an opportunity blown.
Russ, what was the other breaking news that was regarding a player that?
Oh yeah, I'll do that now. Zach McMillan's asking me though, Clark or Ratty for number one. I wouldn't count out Owen Power for number one. All right, so the other one. Let me get it again because now I lost it on my screen. It's Zdeno Chara, and basically his agent had a quote, and then so did what's his name, Cam Neely. Let's see. I'll get the agent quote here though. It doesn't sound fantastic. We'll just put it that way. Let's see if I could find it again. Well, I'm going to just give you the gist of it. The gist of it is they're in contact, but they have to just decide this is on their end, Chara's end, what they're going to do. And then let's see. Here's what Cam Neely said. It's really a matter of what his desire is and how the coaching and we feel what our lineup should look like and could look like depending on development of some of these young guys. So
right.
Again, it's not like keeping the door wide open for him. I feel like they have moved on. If you ask me, I feel like the Bruins have already come up with a plan. That's like a big truck coming by. I do feel like they've already had a plan, and the plan is we're moving on.
I'm starting to feel like you're probably right on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other big news that Elliot Friedman reported this morning, Nikita Kucherov is having apparently he's had some hip difficulty the last couple months. He's getting an injection into his hip. Yeah. His future for this season is in question. Okay, now the differing thing here is like Pierre LeBrun reported that it's very possible Kucherov could come back within a couple weeks, but the dire predictions is that this could be a lengthy absence, and obviously with Tampa Bay being way over the cap and having a situation where they're probably in need to trading somebody like Tyler Johnson or Killorn, if Kucherov goes on LTIR, then neither is necessary. But I can't see them putting Kucherov on LTIR the entire season. I could imagine that for Stamkos because it was a stomach muscle situation.
I also heard the thing about Stamkos today, and this is interesting, that Stamkos may opt out. Now, the concept
he could opt out.
The concept of opt out is another thing we should discuss. Because that. All right,
before we discuss it, the Kucherov thing. Let me bring this up back. There's somebody in my family who gets these kinds of shots, and you could really only get them once every 6 months.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and so they may not be calling this an injury for him, but if it's bothering him enough that he has to get one, the hope is that it works. If it doesn't work, then he may spend months, 2-3 months on the LTIR, and if it works, he won't spend any time. That's the way it's going to work.
Well, in terms of the opt-out first, just use this as an example. Say Stamkos opts out.
Right.
Tampa Bay has the option of tolling his contract or not.
Right.
If they do, then everything moves a year down the road, and Stamkos doesn't lose a year on his deal.
Right.
So he gets his money in the end anyway. So is that a possibility? Sure. If he is having Stomach
off the cap, right, Mike? It comes off the cap if they do
comes
that.
off the cap completely.
Look, these guys, Stamkos and Kucherov,
that could be maybe the solution that they've been looking at.
They're both of them are going to play rock paper scissors until they feel like which one is going to help the Tampa cap. But it's going to happen. We knew it's going to happen. We've been talking about it.
Here's a clarification here. Ontario Premier Doug Ford, moments after announcing he's enacting a province-wide shutdown, says no decision has been made on whether the Leafs and Senators will be allowed to play games at home in January. If they were going to say the shutdown was completely wide open, they would have said they can't play, which means I think they're going to
answer from
Well, I don't know, Mike. This answer tells me they're negotiating. This
answer tells me that
it's not definitive.
Up in the air.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying it's nothing. No, they're not going to play in the U.S.
I don't know about that. I mean, this is not a definitive answer, Mike.
I think that they're not going to play in the U.S. as well. I do agree with you, but they would play. I mean, if they can't play in Ontario, where are they going to go?
They're going to go to Buffalo.
Edmonton.
Or they could go to Quebec.
Unless they have a problem. Look, we don't know what's going to happen. I'm telling you, this is a very slippery slope. I know everybody wants to keep the teams in Canada, but when you have to start deciding, I'm going to go here and I'm going to go there, I'm telling you, these health agencies in Canada especially are not going to give you definitives until the last minute. And the NHL has to be able to make travel plans. They have to do all those kinds of things. You could do that in the U.S., and you may not be able to do that in Canada. And that may be the fly in the ointment here. They'll wait till after the holidays, but at some point, they're going to have to make a hardened decision. And if Ford keeps flip-flopping like that, then those teams are going to be in trouble for playing in that area. We don't know.
Then the option is either playing in your individual buildings or playing in a hub. It doesn't mean playing in the U.S. because the one thing that people keep forgetting about them playing in the U.S. They've already announced the divisions. So if you're playing 7 teams in the U.S. in a Canadian division, then they're all going to have to be like within a reasonable distance of each other in terms of travel. And then there's going to have to be probably a week to 2 weeks when they can play in Canada that they'll have to quarantine. So.
Or they just, you know what? Or they just decide Canada doesn't work and we're going to make Buffalo a hub. You just don't know. You don't know that.
I don't know that, but I really seriously doubt that will be the case.
I'm telling you, everything is out there. Otherwise, Doug Ford would basically say today, the NHL doesn't have to worry. The fact that he didn't say that means that now Gary Bettman has to be on the phone. Daly has to be on the phone with him and try and hammer something out.
He's saying this because he's got to at least look like he's going to be careful.
I'm in the weird position
that might be more likely.
I'm in the weird position of being the glass is half full guy, whereas Russ is being the glass is half empty. Yeah. I think that Ford would have basically said everything is shut down, even the Senators, even the Leafs, kiss my butt, that's it. He didn't say that. He said we're still looking at it, which means I think if they dot the I's and cross the T's, that they're going to be able to play. I'll tell you what the other possibility is, and it's all possible. But the other possibility is that if it keeps going up the way it is in Canada, that all of a sudden those health agencies are going to be like, well, you're not allowed to have any workers at the building, period. Right? Yeah, well, I mean, the funny thing is that they announced that they were going to had the shutdown starting on Christmas Eve. And then they changed it and they announced that it was going to start on Boxing Day. So it's you know what I'm saying? It's like they didn't want to ruin people's holidays.
They didn't want to ruin the holiday, but again, if people load up their houses during the holiday, it could ruin things down the line.
I mean, we're going to see. Although we haven't. It's hard to say. We haven't
had the spike that people thought we were going to after Thanksgiving.
Right, we haven't seen that.
No, Eck, I don't know about that because
we don't know.
In Queens, yesterday in Queens they busted a 160 person gathering, and so you don't know, but because you're not hearing about it.
Yeah, we don't know the reaction. We don't know the spike though. Like we expected, 2 weeks after Thanksgiving to be a problem.
Yeah,
it hasn't been. So we don't know as far as but cases.
But I just think all of it's in play. Unfortunately, I think it's all in play.
There was a huge spike in Canada, and they didn't have Thanksgiving in November, so that's
right. It's all specious, kind of. It's tough.
Right.
We don't know what's causing what right now is really like.
Right. I'm just saying if the spike continues, there may be the whole thing may have to be rethought. And I think they're going to give it a few days. They'll let it breathe for a few days because they don't have to put the schedule out yet. But I do think nothing is nailed down.
Now, in general, I liked most everything that the NHL did and announced. The division change is fine. That was the reality with the border and things of that nature. I still think the border is going to end up being open. I would say probably by March.
March or April, yeah.
March or April. But
right.
The one thing I think they missed the boat on, and in the end, Gary Bettman won out. They didn't expand the playoffs. You're going to have a division. Yeah, they're going to have 3 American divisions of 8 teams, and the Canadian division of 7 teams, which is the same structure as it is, normally, but different division constructs, and only 4 teams in each division making it. I think it sucks. I really do. It should be 20 teams. They should have a play-in round, but I think what the thought process was is they didn't want to extend the length of the playoffs because they wanted to complete.
I think that's the big thing, and I think I would have rather them go to 48 games and had them extend the playoffs, to be honest. But because I think most teams would, because the playoffs could potentially be good revenue makers. I mean, the playoffs could potentially be fans.
I mean, Eck, here's a tweet. Sarah Orleski just sent the tweet. No update today on whether the Winnipeg Jets will be allowed to host home games this season. According to Dr. Adwai, discussions are still ongoing. Like, they don't have any finality for any of these places in Canada.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to have to make different kinds of deals with Canada. There's going to basically, it can all get done, but it's going to take a lot. And
it's going to take a lot of lobbying on the part.
It's going to also take probably the people working at the arena to be quarantined and to be tested like in different levels, different kinds of situations, testing every day for anybody working in the arena, that kind of stuff. That's what Canada's going to have to do. But the other, I mean, and the real fear though that they have, which is legitimate, is that the people coming. Actually, no, forget it. That's not a fear at all. Forget that. I'm thinking something else.
I know what you're thinking.
They're worried about people coming in from other places, obviously, but it's all Canada. But still, if there's a spike in Alberta, you want to bring that spike to Ontario. I mean, that's the thought, so the issue is how you're going to deal with that, that's why they're worried about it. I mean, it's going to be a problem.
Like Randy said, Alberta isn't locked down until January. Now, maybe they'll cut a deal with the Flames, but maybe they won't.
Canada's a tough one, tricky. I mean, I think at the end of the day, they will. And this is a very important thing to Canada, a very important thing to Canadians, very important thing to the economy.
And if there is the need for a hub, it could be a situation where they say, okay, Canadian teams, we're going to hub in Edmonton for the entire month of January, which means January 13th to February 1, and then February 1 we're playing in our buildings. If at that point the provincial governments still are saying no, then honestly, I don't know what to tell you. I think but that's
the problem. You can't make that decision, and
there has to be a guarantee on the part of those provincial governments that yes, on a certain date you can play. Right.
There definitely has to be it. Otherwise, you can't go along with that premise because you could literally blow up that whole division because of the way
the players did not agree. The players do not want to play in bubbles or hubs.
No, but they also know that they can't do anything if the government tells them they can't do it. They know that. It doesn't matter what you agree on. If the government comes out and says, this is
okay, but Eck, here's a hypothetical. Hypothetically, it doesn't get any better. There's a worse strain. You could be stranding those 7 teams in Canada for much longer than you should be, and there's no guarantee that they wouldn't be playing each other in playoff rounds until they could cross over and play in the States, maybe for the conference finals and the Stanley Cup. That's the risk you're taking. There is a little bit of that risk.
That's possible. It is entirely possible. We agree with you completely.
Because I know it's easy to say, the borders will open up, and like Mike and I, like March and April, we're hoping, people. Like, we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. We have no idea.
Well, one thing we also have to talk about is like the league calendar in terms of like the important dates,
right?
Because
I think we should talk about that tomorrow, okay? Because
that's fine.
Let's talk about tomorrow, and then we're going to also be getting into I think we should start doing some previews and teams and things like that because we're there. We're going to see some moves in the next couple of days too. So we'll have other things to talk about as well. Yes, Kovalchuk did return to the KHL.
Yeah, we talked about it. Yep.
I'm sure you talked about it already.
Yeah.
But I'm not surprised at it
We
at all.
wished him well.
Yeah, we had good thoughts for you at that point, because we know how much you love Ilya Kovalchuk.
Yes, he is definitely in the rumor Hall of Fame.
You won't have to report about him any longer.
Yeah, but you didn't hear about the return of Thomas Caberlet.
No, but he's. Someone suggested I should do a rumor Hall of Fame at some point, which I will officially. But Thomas Caberlet would definitely be in there along with Matt Sundin, and other Leafs as well. We've talked about way too often. And I'll say now, that at this point also, there's what's his name from from Vegas, Pacioretty, definitely okay. Now Pacioretty is officially in there as well because he's been now rumored in so many different situations. He was such a rumor in Montreal forever. Now he's being rumored. Although I do believe it's Marchand who's going to be traded. We'll get into that.
Pierre LeBrun, sorry to interrupt. Pierre LeBrun has tweeted in the last hour that players from the 7 non-playoff teams have until Thursday to notify their clubs if they're opting out, and players on the other teams have until December 27th to opt out.
Yeah.
There you go.
And one report said at this point, I think LeBron said he had contacted 23 teams and no players on any of the 23 teams is opting out.
Right.
There you go. All right. Well, guys, thanks for watching. Always fast time here. Fun to be back. Good to talk to you all. We will be back with you again tomorrow. Please stay tuned on the site because we got definitely things happening, and we could have some signings. We could have some moves. We could definitely have some trades. Keep your eyes peeled on Vegas. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Marcia, so I meant, not Marchand.
Wait, I got one more thing, just because Jim
yes,
Rutherford said Jordan Nolan is going to be invited to camp even though he's an American League contract.
Well, there you go. All right.
So that's going to be another thing, too. They'll get camp invites, but they may not stick.
They have to sign a contract to do it.
Correct.
Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We